Today I test the new Cinestill 400D, discuss what makes a good film stock, and also share a tip for editing 400D. So yeah, this is real BTS. I'm in my car, listening to all through a lens actually. Got my camera loaded, waiting for my friend to show up. We're almost all surely familiar with Cinestill's 400D launch that raised nearly $1 million in a crowdfunding campaign. The early bird film has been mailed out and is already making plenty of appearances and reviews. I got mine too, so let's go use this stuff. So what makes a film good? We still have this concept that things have to behave a certain way to be a good film. Kodak's process is basically the standard in quality film consistency and perfection. You can see behind the scenes of Kodak in this excellent Smarter Everyday series, and if you go on the description of that, you can find Smarter Everyday 2 to see deep dives into this process. It's really awesome. I definitely recommend the one about the quality control. And in contrast, you have a film like Lumen Turquoise, a film that defies decades of film quality concepts. While it may not be everyone's idea of a good film, it's got its fans and it has its place in the pantheon of still existing film emulsions. Speaking of existing film emulsions, I decided to shoot a roll of 50D despite it being a little too dark at this point for 50D. We're about 30 minutes later than I expected and sunset moves fast. I lost about half this roll to shaky photos, but I wanted to see what the Fuji GA645 could do without the flapping mirror. Not super awesome, but also not terrible either. I could have been a little less shaky and moved to a bit brighter light. 50 ISO is not nearly as low as some people seem to think it is. Like Cinestill's other crowd-funded major hit 800T, Cinestill 50D, and 400D are all Kodak Vision 3 cinema film stock, meaning that they're cinema film but without the ramjet black layer, which reduces halation and allows film to go through cinema cameras at a high speed. By not having it on the film, it allows this film, the Cinestill film, to be processed in C41 chemistry, meaning you can take advantage of the super versatile and really awesome Vision 3 film without getting banned from your local lab for life. And while my GoPro is about to overheat on the footage here and turn off without me knowing, it's a great opportunity for us to do a little time travel to shooting my first 2 rolls of 400D. Go, my first roll of Cinestill 400D. That was my first roll of 400D in 120, by the way. So I shot with Taylor in this river in San Marcos, Texas, and it was great, and it went pretty well except for the GoPro overheated and I lost a lot of the footage. But I did get this stuff that I shot on the Cinestill and the Fuji GA645, which I used namely because it could get 16 shots per roll, so it gave me kind of a larger sample size. Thankfully, it also helped me cover for a few focus and exposure errors, but there weren't too many. I wanted to challenge not only the camera because it was still new to me at this point, but the 400D. I wanted to see how it held highlights. I wanted to see how much it would take to cause the halation. Also, I didn't plan to get in the water at all here, so this was super tricky and my pants totally got soaked. But Taylor was awesome and just went all the way in the water, and we got some good shots, I think. It was pretty heavily backlit, and I was still learning how to deal with the GA645 a bit in that regard. But I think even underexposed, there's still some charm here, and there's some high contrast too. This was mistimed, well actually the camera's fault, but it shows a good range of latitude, and I really like how this one turned out. The halation helped give it the dreamy effect I wanted it to, and didn't become overly obtrusive to me, and the film really played into the Ophelia vibes we had going here. And speaking of missing footage, as I mentioned, this is from a nude beach, so there was no footage recorded, but it was an awesome rocky beach and it was impossible to pass up. Here's Gabby among the rocks, and you see the fine grain of the 400D here. I just really love how these turned out. It was blazing hot and just as bright, but 400 ISO held up just fine. I didn't shoot this at 250 at all, and it seemed to work well. Before this flashback is over, we have to go back to the first roll of 400D I shot at all, which was 35mm. Vlog. first roll of Cinestill 400D. Forever a glutton for punishing photo lighting situations, I shot this and also blazing light and shadow at this cool parking garage window with mace. They are an awesome dancer and I took full advantage, and I love how the film held up. The 35mm didn't show a terrible amount of grain at all, and the highlights held surprisingly well. The color shift was not really there. We'll get to that in a minute, by the way. There's a little editing stuff I have to talk about. But overall, it was a great first roll, and the halation didn't even get provoked very much unless it was like an extreme highlight, so that was very promising right out of the gate. But the flashback is now over, and we'll go back to the thing that has also already happened. Okay, maybe I'm still recording, who knows? If you use GoPros, do you have problems with them overheating like this? By the way, every square photo you see in this video was shot on a Hasselblad 503 CW. Unlike overheating GoPros, my patrons never let me down. For as little as $1 a month, you can help support me on here. It really helps a lot. I appreciate it, and there's a link in the description. Thanks to everyone on screen and everyone who considers and everyone who supports the channel. As I mentioned earlier, I didn't shoot the 400D at its supposed native ISO of 250 at all in here, and in fact, when I shoot Vision 3 250D in its natural state with the remjet and all, I usually shoot it around 160. And as with 800T, which is naturally 500T with remjet, Cinestill says that the removal of the remjet layer increases its sensitivity, making it more like an 800 speed film. Although I shoot 800T at 400 with results I like a lot better, and it doesn't happen in 50D. I can see it working out that way, especially since C41 is technically cross-processing. I would say in this case 400 seems to be a good speed for 400D. I didn't shoot it at 250 or 160, and I believe it would probably do just fine, but if you want a 400 speed film, which I really like since 400H went away and I struggle so much with Portra 400, I think this is an excellent 400 speed film. Even with some gentle backlighting, there was not a lot of halation. When there was heavier backlighting, of course there is. I need to experiment with using a haze type filter to kind of control the shape and appearance of the halation, but that's for a later time. Looking at some of the earlier results from this film, from others, you'll notice it shows up on Cinestill 50D. There's a greenish tint to the film. This is probably partially due to the remjet and cross-processing thing, although it's pretty easy to take out in post. I want to point out something about this film versus something like a Portra or whatever, and I'm correcting it here with the color grading portion of Lightroom, and it is basically a ripoff of one of my favorite parts about Capture One that I abandoned with Negative Lab Pro and Lightroom, even though I think it gets better color result. But this allows you to, in combination with Negative Lab Pro, affect the overall color balance and color rendition of the photo just a little bit, although it needs to be done after your Negative Lab Pro corrections, I might add. It affects by highlight, midtone, and shadow, and you just kind of counterbalance them, but I'll look and see if I can find a tutorial to link on this. But it's a nice extra touch, and any shift you might get from any number of things can be more easily corrected in that. And the same goes for other scans I've seen of 400D that maybe had a shifted color. This is a cinema film cross-processed in C41. A film like Portra was made for C41 and made for printing. This film is made to be flat and to be flexible for motion picture color grading, which can really be heavy compared to what a lot of film photographers do, at least in post, considering they're working with negatives that are engineered to be used a certain way, and some of that engineering is based in older ideas. So yeah, the color might be a little different on this film, but we just have to learn the process of editing this film, because you can get really great colors with it, and it's just a different type of process than what's traditionally available. But it's a great film, and you can do a lot of great and repeatable things with it. So that's my take. It's worth it to me. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe, turn on notifications, leave a comment, let me know what you think of 400D. Have you tried it? I'll see you soon. Thanks. Later.